All right, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Welcome. Happy Sunday if you're tuning in with me live. So good to have you here. And if you are coming through on the replay later in the week, I hope the week is going well for you. Whenever you're here, I hope this space can be a great centering space so that you can kind of take stock of where you're at and move forward in health. So we're going to be thinking about that. Do you ever feel confined or pressured or stressed or oppressed by rules and details and things that you have to do? You're trying to move in a healthy direction and it feels like, oh, there's so many things, and it can feel overwhelming. And then you say, you know what, I'm done. I'm gonna move on. So many diets, exercise frameworks, weight loss frameworks create this sort of environment. And as I've worked with people over the years, I've had conversations with so many people that go something like this. I'm just not ready to commit to something like that. This is not the time. I can't handle the stress and the pressure of that. And so I'm going to dive into a lot of thinking, try to unpack something like that. If you've thought things like that in the past, let me know. Are there specific rules or principles that you struggle with? I'd be happy to hear your perspective on it. I'm not a big fan of rules. Like I will say, in general, people is like, we understand, okay, sometimes we have to have rules, like rules of the road, right? To keep us safe, right? But also following rules. People don't like being told what to do, right? So that's the other side of it. Don't like being bossed around. Don't like being told what to do. Don't like feeling confined, like, oh, I'm just trapped in a box. And so we're going to be diving into that sort of space today, saying, how do we get ourselves out of a mindset like that if we're in a place like that? This is a fasting space, kind of how I title this program. We're on the Simple Fasting channel, which to me, big goals that I have for it. Everybody that is here, I want to find more than anything, a space in your life, whether that's fasting or anything else, but of peace and contentment. Last week, we did the session on saying no to consumption culture, right? Trying to say yes to contentment culture. Food is the specific aspect of our consumption patterns where fasting is concerned, right? But it can be a practice or a pattern that can spill over into other areas of our life. And so I would say a big thing lacking in our culture these days: peace, contentment, satisfaction, and a general sense of having enough. And so we dive in specifically on fasting here as a practice of openness. And to me, it's like the antidote to the rules, right? If you can turn anything into a rule, rules have their place. You could turn fasting into a rule, and I think a lot of people do that. Turn it into something that is dogmatic and like a discipline from a perspective of rigidity and tension. And I've definitely talked to people come to my clinic who've practiced fasting in the past and say, oh, it's not quite for me. And I say, well, tell me about it, tell me about what you did. And they start unloading on the pressure. They're like, I just couldn't stick with it like every day. And then I'm like, whoa, it's way too much pressure. To me, fasting is openness. Fasting is an opportunity to trust the body. And I thought before we dive in, thought I'd try to tell you a mini little story that I think relates about my yesterday. So yesterday I had the beautiful opportunity to head out into the country. My folks have some property outside of Madison, and I love getting out there. And I thought, even as I was leaving, I was like, I should bring my camera and then I can put it on the session tomorrow. But then also, like, when I don't know about you, but like when I get out of town, it's also like a chance to disconnect. So good. I was like, I don't want a camera or screen. So you'll just have to picture it with me. Beautiful end of summer day, beautiful white clouds and blue sky and green trees. And there's this section where it's kind of like branches come down and it's like, we just kind of pile them up in this area. And it's like, oh, we'll take care of it later, you know? And so this brush pile has built over, I don't know, the last year into this big pile of gnarly branches. And then plants and weeds, you know, it's everything growing up through it. So it's this tangled mess. I say, you know what, I'm going to have a brush fire and I'm going to burn this up. And then we'll get it all cleaned up and taken care of. And I said, you know, it'd be cool sometimes for the channel. I've shot the time lapses. Check some of these out if you haven't seen them. I do love a time lapse as an art form. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool actually if I had filmed a time lapse of this whole pile burning down? That would be kind of interesting. But as I was sitting there watching it, I was thinking like, okay, this is kind of an analogy of what we're trying to do in a fasting space. Fasting space, open space, and our metabolism is like a fire. And it really is, because it's burning, it's consuming energy, it's burning stuff up. It's generating heat. That's why it's 98 in here and 72 out here. So energy being consumed, we're opening up a space. I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing here. I'm opening up a space right here in this beautiful countryside. I'm going to burn through this excess. This is what I want people to think of for fasting, okay? Opening up a space in the body where we allow that fire, that metabolism to burn. We're not, not throwing more logs on the pile, right? That's like eating. It's like we're not supplying external energy. Like we're just taking care of what's right here. So I'm watching this fire burning up. I'm like, oh, like this is great. We're burning through the excess. We're cleaning this place up. It's going to look better. And then the other thing that I do, okay, we have a wonderful garden out there, and I won't take us too far down the rabbit hole. Well, but no, it's so relevant, because like the two sides of the coin are, okay, fasting, so healthy, and healthy eating, right? And I've told the story on the channel before, like when I was thinking about calling the channel Simple Fasting, I also thought about calling it normal eating, because like fasting is just normal eating. But then I'm like, okay, people are going to get confused, But it's so important. Like we have to eat healthy food. I'm a big believer. We should try to eat the healthiest food that we can. And so growing your own food is highly encouraged to the extent you can. And maybe that's just a little planter on the entryway where you grow a tomato and you have it. It can be the smallest thing. But even symbolically, right? Just say, I'm going to try to take control of a part of the food that I'm consuming. And I'm going to try to give it healthy nutrients and all these things, because it is a cycle. And nature is supposed to be a cycle. And so much of the dishealth that we have in our society is because we've cut off the cycles. We only have half of a cycle, We don't hardly compost anything. The nutrients are supposed to cycle back into the soil, but we just throw them away. And then we have our fields that are not getting all of this nutrition, and we have to pump it full of natural gas fertilizer. It's crazy. So to try to say, I'm going to take a part of that. I try to do that, in a tiny way. I want to do it much more in the future. But Have you ever heard of terra preta? So terra preta is like this, I think that's how you say it, this incredible, hyper fertile black soil down in the Amazon. As people study it, it only goes down 12 feet. But it goes down 12 feet. It's like 12 feet of this black, just incredibly fertile soil. And then it's just clay and other stuff. And what people think is that people were burning and then incorporating the coal, the carbon, into the soil for 1,000 years to build it into this soil. Anyway, so I had this fire, and then you put it out. Like if you just let the fire burn out, it'll burn, and all that carbon will go into the atmosphere, CO2. But a lot of what happens when the fire's really blazing, you're burning off everything else, like all kinds of other compounds. But the carbon is what is the coals, right? Those coals, this is my favorite part of a fire, when it's just those glowing coals. And you say, how do they burn so long? Like, okay, this fire, it goes, and it reduces, but then the coals are there and they stay hot for so long. It's because that carbon burns the most intensely, with the highest heat and the most intensity. But it's also, there's so much energy there. And so if you hose it down right at that point, which is what I'd been trying to do, you stop the process, all the excess has been burned away, you're left with this pure carbon, and then you hose it out and you save it, and all of a sudden you've locked this pure carbon in this state, which used to be the bodies of the wood, right? But now it's all these little nanotubes of carbon structures, and then you can mix that into your compost, charge it up, that's biochar, and then you can incorporate it into that soil, which cultures figured out thousands of years ago, that makes the soil hyper fertile, and it gives all these little nano spaces place for bacteria and fungi. And so we've been doing that and building up our soil with this. And this is also, I think, such an incredible analogy for our fasting process, right? Burn away the excess to get to the pure, valuable, essential, life-giving nutrients, right? The core of it. So I'm thinking, okay, in the big picture, this whole brush pile, burning it down, purifying, refining, right? I love these words, is cleaning up the landscape. We think, okay, this is what we want happening in our body, right? I gotta make a video. Pat says, I love the fire video idea. Yeah, I've gotta make it. It would have been the perfect day to do it yesterday, but we will not live with regret. We'll figure out a way to do it in the future. But this is what we want. Burn down the excess, refine and purify, like in our body, right? Bring that concept inside, because, okay, we have a metabolism. And it's a fire that is burning inside us. And if we give it the space, then we can get that. That's what the autophagy effect is, right? That is the burning through of everything we don't need. Throw the odds and ends in the scraps. When the tree comes down, big sections, we try to take the nice stuff and then chop it up and stack it up, some nice firewood so you can have a fire, right? All the odds and ends, the gnarly stuff, throw it on the pile. I think a lot of this stuff happens in the body. We accumulate dysfunctional proteins. This is like the gnarly branches that you throw on a pile. All right. And if you never give the body space like that, like here, we took the space yesterday in the country, we had a fire, we cleared out the excess. If you never have that space in the body, that's the fasting space. You say, hey, metabolism is burning, stop throwing the logs on the fire, all the things, and just let the body clear through that. That's autophagy space. No food is coming in. Body is saying, all right, what do we do? Like, no food is coming in. Body's metabolically flipping over into this different energy space, fasting space, and says, okay, like, what do we got here? And isn't it incredible that the body can do stuff like that? Like, it's a miracle. I think, like, just taking a pause to say, like, the body knows in real time, like, where energy is and what types and what parts, and within trillions of cells, it knows. All right, Here we're saving over. This corner of the cell over here, right? This is where we are storing, the gnarly branches, right? And when we get the opportunity to do it, we're going to set that stuff on fire, basically. And so you open up that space, body's like, oh, we got our brush pile over there. We got plenty of energy still. Got all these dysfunctional proteins, the organelles, which are the little cellular structures that make our proteins, make all the hormones, all this stuff. Those need to be degraded and rebuilt anew. Body does it in large measure during a fasting space with this autophagy protocol. So some people say like, oh, a fasting space, like, what is that? It's like, well, it's a highly valuable space. Refine the metabolism, refine the situation, clean it up. Yeah, okay, so it's good to talk through that. Now I can see. I should have brought the camera. I'll do it again sometime, and we'll make a beautiful fire video, and we'll think through that concept. That's the first time I've kind of talked through that concept. I'm really liking it, though. Perfect analogy for what we're trying to do. Burn up this excess. Pat says, good morning. Happy Labor Day here. Yes, looking forward to the extra day. If I make a rule for myself, I will break it in defiance when I get stressed or tired. Let's dive in, because this is exactly the case. For many people, I kind of myself included, like I really resonate with this idea. Pat loves the fire video idea. Yeah, thank you. I do too. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm going to think this was the missed opportunity, which is okay. We all have missed opportunities, because this pile had been sitting there for a year and all the stuff growing up through it. And I think if we could have shown look how all this is like, what a tangled mess. The thing of it, okay, so many, I don't like to call plants weeds. I don't want to call weeds anymore. But, there's thistles going through there and ragweed, and there's all this stuff. So you could call it a weed. They're all wonderful beings. But you couldn't even see all the wood that was hiding in there. It just looks like a pile of a hill or something. But then by the time we get done, it's like flat. I was like, that would be interesting also as part of an analogy of you start opening up this space. It's like taking care of stuff that you didn't even know was there. Like that is, that is also a great analogy. I try to focus here, help people lose weight with fasting is like a core thing. But there's all these other benefits that are happening in the body, like detoxifying stuff. Most, or so many, are the least dangerous, chemicals, toxins, fat soluble. You start liquidating like the body fat is like cleansing, right? You get a lot of this stuff out of the system. All right. What are specific rules that you dislike? So wherever you're at, are there rules that you've made for yourself in the past that you say, oh, it just didn't work, or you got angry about it? Are there rules that you think that you still have, like in your mind, where you see, okay, this is something that is kind of trapping me in a space, or you're intimidated by it? You say, you know what, I'm not going to walk toward a health space here now because I'm going to run into this type of rule, and I know that it is going to be frustrating and irritating, and maybe you've gone through cycles of it before where you've gotten tripped up with something like that. So if you can identify something like that, maybe that's a task for the week, like a journaling prompt, like where am I feeling intimidated or limited by health-related rules? When I was thinking about rules, I was thinking about words that are similar to rule, but that I like better. So routine is a much better word than a rule, because a rule kind of says like you can't break it, and if you break it, it sets up this condition where it's like you're bad. You're like a rule breaker, and then it creates like a negative cycle. Okay, but a routine is something that it still has structure, but it's more flexible. Like you can get in and out of a routine, and then it is better to stay in a routine in general, but it's not the end of the world if you get out of it. And there's just much less pressure in a word like that, because structure has value, routines have value, and doing things that work has value. And so that's what I put on the little picture for this, session. No rules for weight loss, but there are things that work. And so this is the balance that you have to find. There's things that work and there's things that don't work. And if you say, well, I'm gonna like you can envision a cycle. You say, okay, Dr. Z says no rules. I just do whatever I want all the time. It's like, well, like that's not gonna work out very well for you probably, right? Unless you're really dialed in and you're like, I just really want to do the perfect healthy thing all the time. Like, well, theoretically it could work, but like, so no rules, not a helpful framework. And like one sort of rule is like, people say like, well, I can never eat any unhealthy thing. And people get into a space like that, and then it's like, then you feel like some treat that you like, some special thing. You say, oh, I can never have it. And then people have a mindset like, oh, then I had it. Then they feel guilty. Like, see, this is a whole cycle that is very counterproductive. And I never tell people things like that. I never say you can't have a treat. I want people to have a special treat, and it's wonderful. If the treat becomes the routine, then it doesn't work. See, that's where we go. We have to have something that works. Rules not a really helpful way to get us there, but like a routine. If the routine is like, hey, most of the time I'm not having like treats all the time. Like my routine is I do that on Fridays or something, as like a treat at the end of the week. See, that's a type of routine that I see work for people. Say most of the week, I'm going to get something like this out. If a special occasion comes up, if it's Labor Day and like, or getting together with a family and somebody, brings the apple pie or whatever, so I'm going to have a piece. Like nobody has to stress about that. See, there's no rule, right? It says you don't have to do it. But most of the time during the week, I'm going to dial in and not be doing that, right? See, that's like a routine, but it's taking pressure off. How does that feel? Are there rules like that? Like, oh, never having a treat. That would be a bad rule. Never eating something bad. See, I don't even like labeling a lot of things good and bad. Like there's just pros and cons to things. Just like a rule is, there's just things that are serving us and there's processes that are not serving us, right? It's much better to look at things that way than to say, oh, here's things I can never do and here's the things that I can do. See, that's a very rigid framework. Here's things that generally work and here's things that generally don't. But if it's like a holiday and, I'm hanging out with friends and family, like, no rule. Sometimes I think about it from a standpoint of, in my medical practice, I've done a lot of counseling on substance use disorders of all kinds, and especially alcohol, because alcohol is so, pervasive. And especially, here in Wisconsin, the amount of alcohol that is consumed is very extreme. And so, thinking about an addiction to a substance, okay, sometimes we can talk about food as like a food addiction, and we can certainly struggle with it. It's the same biochemical pathways are hitting our dopamine, our reward cycles. We get into a cycle with anything, whether, it's a chocolate cake or an alcohol or whatever it is. Just an activity, like these addiction pathways are very powerful, and you can struggle with anything. And so sometimes that kind of thought process can be helpful. If it's not helpful for you, it's like, well, there's no rules. Don't think of it that way. But sometimes I'll be talking to someone about alcohol, And, people have, like, right, such terrible consequences from it and dysfunction. And you say, I don't want that part of my life in the future. And like the reality is for many people, you say, like, you can't drink in the future. It's not worth it. Every time I've tried it, it just cycles in such a bad way. But it can be overwhelming to think of that, when you think, like, my whole life, am I never going to be drinking again? Is you're bringing all the burden of that, the whole future decisions every time. It's like, it's so much, okay? And one of the best ways to think about it, so many programs go there, is just living in the present, right? Isn't this what we need to do? Today, I don't want to be drinking, right? And that's good enough. Like, and that you can handle, right? You say, because like very clearly today, like you say, I'm in a good place. I'm content. I'm finding satisfaction, meaning, value, presence here in this moment. That's a powerful framework. I've talked with so many people who have gotten over an alcohol addiction who say, we're just taking it one day at a time. Like, we're 5 years out, but like, we're just dealing with it one day at a time. Now, from a certain perspective, you say, well, a food addiction or struggling with cravings or something like that, you say, is that nowhere near as intense as alcohol? Well, I would say the side effects of it are nowhere near as intense in the short term. I mean, you're not going to get a DUI for chocolate cake. You know what I mean? Thank God. But the struggle is real with it, and many health implications from it. You say, if our body is not operating in a healthy framework and we have metabolic problems, is leading to great deals of disability and disease, right? If we think of the end result of so many of these things, even if it's just osteoarthritis, right? Cause a tremendous amount of pain and suffering and disability. And then every other metabolic problem from there, diabetes and fatty liver disease and heart disease. Say, no, this is actually really serious. If it's fun to joke about it. We say, oh, we can just joke about chocolate cake, right? But it's not really a joke, right? And it's actually really serious. And then you get into that place and you say, well, because this is how I'm thinking about it, right? Our society treats it like a joke, right? It's become a joke to take healthy eating seriously. Like, and so that's kind of giving me pause as I was even joking about it. But no, it's really serious. So we want to dive into that mindset. We say, how do you actually do it? Because you say, oh, well, it would seem so easy. Good morning to Janice here. So nice to have you here. When you joke about it, like I was kind of doing, you say, oh, it's like, well, it's not like alcohol addiction. It's like just a piece of cake. Okay. But if this is the thing, okay, not a lot of people in our society, like, finding success actually doing it. That's why we're having so much trouble in our society. That's why we have, it's at least, I should say, one part of the puzzle. Obviously, it's very complex, a very difficult situation. Why are we having the difficulty that we are having in our society? Multifactorial. But if we are trying to ourselves take control of it and move away from it, say, I'm going to take control of this situation, okay? Got to have a very powerful mindset to do that. Living in this present moment, that is part of it. To say, there's no rules on what I can or can't do. Whatever the food is, I'm picking on chocolate cake. You pick your favorite thing. If there's a food that you struggle with, if there's something, no rules. It says you can't have it. Have it whenever you want. You don't have to feel, and you don't have to, and I would even say, like I was saying before, you don't even have to think of it as bad. Like, think of it as good. It's a good thing. It's good to have a treat. But what is the routine, right? Because we said the routine is the word that is less intense. What is the routine that you can stick with most of the time that works, that is balancing these things out? And then from this framework, today, I'm not going to think, oh, I can never have my preferred treat again. Because, like, you can. It's totally fine. I've worked with people who've lost hundreds of pounds who still occasionally, on occasion, whatever occasion is right for them, still have a treat and reward themselves. I think that's the right word. I think that's fine. But it's not part of the general framework of what they're doing. Within that day, then most days, so the average day, say there's a day where you're not having like some treat, the chocolate cake, right? You say, well, this is not part of my life today. Are you finding contentment in that moment? You say, this is how we build out contentment culture, right? I think one of the things I was thinking this week is about, what was the thought? Preferring comfort over happiness. And this is what is interesting. Like, we tend to think like, oh, if I'm comfortable, I'm happy. But I was thinking about this state, like where it's not the case. We definitely like to pursue comfort, right? Comfort food, right? So part of eating food is like comforting ourselves. Super treat, right? Sweet treat, hitting a lot of centers in the brain, saying, oh, this is good. This is what sets up that cycle. But do you have it where you have something like that and then you're not happy? You might feel comfortable without feeling happy. So I would say reflect on that a tiny bit, because if we're trying to unpack, the decisions, the feelings, the emotions, to get into a state within one day, what we're really trying to do, right, is have one day only. No pressure about the future. One day where we're existing peace and contentment in a cycle that is taking us toward our goal. Because if we can have a day like that, right, that is like a model day where we've actually done it. We say, oh, I can do that. This is how you take things one day at a time and step forward. Focusing on one day is enough for any person. It's how we keep ourselves from being overwhelmed. I just want one day. And think about, like, what would my perfect day look like? My perfect health day, right? How do we create and shape our environment to make it as easy as possible to experience that? And then we practice experiencing it. And it doesn't matter. There's no rule that says we have to finish it. There's no rule that says it has to be the whole day. But we have a blueprint where we say, in my perfect health day, I'm stepping toward living in the type of way that is like idealized for me. It's not like there can only be one type of day. The average day is like, I'm not having the cake and I'm feeling content and I'm feeling good. Yeah. Maybe a fasting component is part of that. And there's always the exception, right? There always can be. But do you see what I'm saying? That mindset that you want to get into for like the average day. Like, I usually try to tell people, like, shoot for 6 days out of 7 is like good enough. Like, I always like to say good enough. And then have the exception to it. And if it ends up being 5 days out of 7, like, don't stress about it, for sure. I really liked that chat last week on consumption culture. I was thinking, though, like, just say no. Okay, that was the thought last week. And then I was going back and forth with Pat a little bit because I was confusing myself on my own thing. I was saying, like, oh, like, say no to, like, the things that aren't serving you. And then Pat kindly listed out things she was saying no to, which was saying no to things. And then I got double negatived, confused on it. Saying no to exercising. like that's like definitely good to do. saying no to not organizing yourself, as saying yes to getting organized, right? And moving the body in healthy ways. Absolutely. So if we say, okay, there's no rules, we've kind of try to unpack some of these thought processes that can help you in a space. Whereas like, okay, no rules, but like what actually works, And if we're gonna like move toward a space, I like the analogy of like trying to lose weight is like painting on a canvas, and it's like we have different colors, different brush strokes, especially if it's oil paints. Because have you ever tried to paint something with an oil paint? It's like it takes forever to dry. Like you want to do layers with it. Like as soon as you paint over, it just starts mixing together. Like oil painting can take a while to put together. That's like weight loss is a journey, right? Weight loss is a process. And every day that we are working on this process, it's like a step toward our goal, right? Every day we have an opportunity to take a step forward. It's like every day is an opportunity to put a couple brush strokes on the canvas of this painting of our life that we're painting, right? We're creating this experience. And so what is the palette of colors, right? That you can paint with, right? Putting that healthy food into the body only, right? That's like a way to do a painting. Some people only use that color, We're just painting with healthy food, and that's fine. Somebody else is trying to add in like the highlights, right, with a different color that is like, I'm going to be exercising, and you balance those things out. Eating healthy food, staying very active. Now, for some people, maybe that is enough to like help people lose weight. Those are the common pieces of advice, right? And they're great pieces of advice. Lots of people trying to do that and not finding success. And this is where I got pushed in my medical practice to say, I tell people to eat healthy food and exercise all the time. And I very rarely see people like changing their life circumstance with that. Like that's just the reality. And that's how I led toward fasting, which is to me the third peg of the three-legged stool or something. Yes, eat healthy food. Yes, move your body in healthy ways. But then dial in the fasting amount that actually works. And that level going to be different for different people. And I, of course, wish that it wasn't. I wish there was one little blueprint that you could stamp out. But I tell people, okay, we're all coming from a different point of view, a different perspective. Here is something fasting been completely overlooked by our society. It's been overlooked by the medical system. It's been overlooked until recently by popular culture. People starting to it's starting to get out. It's on YouTube. You can search for it. People starting to realize, people done this for thousands of years, has helped people. This is the physiology of the body. And now medicine coming around, especially the researchers, right? People studying it. They're like, well, this is fascinating. The body's got whole pathways, fascinating processes, the autophagy, like we talked about. Like, that's pretty cool. So, like, people doing basic research on fasting now, trying to outline all of the real nerdy stuff, biochemical pathways. And then I say, like, all that is great, but I always tell people, like, you don't have to know all of that. You don't have to know cellular processes. It's fun to know. It's kind of nice to know that this stuff is there. But from the practice of actually doing it, like, so here we're in this space, we're saying no rules. You don't even have to know very much. Like, you just need to know, like, the body's built to be able to do this. And it's like a third dial. Like, if you say, I'm burning myself, I can't eat healthier. I can't exercise anymore. Or I don't want to. Like, what else can I do? You say, practicing fasting, this is why I say is openness. To me, it's the opposite of a rule, right? Fasting is just open space where we can learn how to trust the body. Say, do we trust the human body in this society? Like, I think in general the answer is no. Like we trust in science, which is fine. Science is great. Science has led to incredible benefit to human society and medicine and all this stuff. We could talk forever. All the incredible aspects of the medical system, okay? And we talked about it last week. You don't find an MRI scanner out in the woods, and thank God we have those, you know? But like, let's step back for a second and just marvel about how incredible the human body is. And like, we've kind of like relegated the human body as like, is over here, and like medicine is here. Like, this is what is important, okay? Like, we need to like flip this around and just realize like the human body is just a marvel. It is just incredible. And I think we haven't just been awestruck at how incredible it is. And we need to have in medicine, I think, a little more humility of to say like, hey, medicine is an auxiliary process. It is supportive of the human body and human society. And from that perspective, how can a medical system, how can medical thought, you know, especially Western medical thought, you know, just be supportive and help the body do what it does? Like, what are the core functions of the body? Can we just know that? Like, fasting is a core function of the human body. It is. It's like at the very center of the metabolism, fasting physiology. And we went through this modern medical era completely ignorant of like core functions. Like, that should give everybody some pause. And so when we are sitting in this space to say fasting is openness, fasting is a space to let the human body function in one of its core functions, right? That's not like a rule. That's like an open space to explore. Pat says, weight loss is important to me, but relaxing comfort will trump my eating plan in a weak moment. Yes, I have yet to find something that will fill that void in a pinch. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so here we are. This is probably, and thank you, for sharing. That's like the key sort of spot. So good to sit into that space a little bit. Feel free to share if you're following along with us. Feel free to share your thoughts on this. What do you do in this sort of situation? I gave some of my best ideas in that video, and I know, Pat, I know you saw that. Those are some core things to do. The broth especially is like as a comfort food. So as it's striking me right now, no rules. There's no rules on how to deal with it. Which you say, if there was a rule, wouldn't it make it easier? In some ways, rules can make things easier. Rules simplify, but then rules also hem us in. The thought that is coming to me for you as I'm thinking about it right now is just to realize, like, is it okay? Like, is it actually okay in a pinch, right? Something that is coming to me in a pinch, like, just don't feel guilty about it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Having the cake, having the thing in a pinch, having a thing, this is not the end of the world. And the thing that I would say is, like, just don't, like, if you think of it as a routine, like routine you can step out of, you have a stressful time, having grace with yourself during that is completely okay. And if that is happening all the time, right, then it doesn't work. So can you have a space where you're stepping toward things weight loss is not a straight line, right? And weight loss very commonly goes like this. If you're going through in the long term and you say, this is not working for me though. So maybe this isn't the space you're in. I'm trying to think my way through it. The space I'm in, okay, because you have good days, right? You're staying on some sort of process. Like, is a process working for you in the big picture? That would be something to know. Is it working? Because if you can take 5 steps forward and 2 steps back, that's kind of like a dance. But if over the course of months, like that sort of place is leading you to a place that is better, like you actually are successfully losing weight, like, see, then that would be totally okay. Like that would be fine. And then there wouldn't be too much to think about. Like one place to push on is like, what are the things in life that are actually pushing you to this place where it's like you can't tolerate it, right? Like some amount of stress is happening and it's like you can't get through it without stress eating. Like, what are those things, actually? That is not a part of an environment, right? That is not an environment that is taking you to a better place health-wise. And maybe the thing to do, okay, I'm just throwing thoughts that are coming to me. Maybe focusing on the food is the wrong, way to go about it. Like the food is going to be there no matter what is happening. Like, what are the circumstances in life that are leading you to say, like, my only way out of this is through eating something that I really don't want? Because you say it, right? It's okay, weight loss is important to me, health is important, all these things, but like the things, right? And this is how we go out of really, to me, like weight loss is like merged so much with our mental health. Like this is like the type of thing, either through journaling or through therapy, meditation is why I did that meditation space. When we just get into like what is happening in our life, that might be the real root level, the real core to get to. And yeah. So can you use a fasting aid? That would be step 1. Can you just accept those times and say, hey, it's okay, because there's no rules about it. Like, also that's okay as long as it's working. These would be approaches. If none of those things are working, then I would say, yes, step 3, I think you have to start looking at the underlying processes. What is it that is driving this? And how do I create that environment where I don't put myself into that scenario? Because you say, like, look, I've done this 1,000 times, right? Every time I get to this stress level, this sort of thing, this is the choices that I make. Can be very hard to brute force your way through that sort of space, or say, like, how can we spend as little time in that space? How do I put myself in an environment where I have to make that choice or rely on my ever dwindling willpower to actually get through that? That would be, that's like level 10, right? I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to do, but changing our life is not an easy thing to do, right? Changing our way of being, especially when we've been floating through this world for how long, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, right? And we have cycles that we go through. Say, well, is it hard to change that? Absolutely, it's hard to change it. It's why so few people do. And that's part of why we're in this health situation that we're in. We have developed habits, patterns, routines, that are not serving people, but it's always easier to keep doing what we have always done, right? Than to change. To change is difficult. That's why, and we might not even be happy. That's where I was going with that other thought. People almost always choose comfort over happiness, even. They say, you could, if you're not happy with where things are at, but it's uncomfortable to change, or it can be uncomfortable to change, people will continue to be unhappy as long as they can be comfortable. And so maybe this would be my challenge for the week. Are you choosing comfort over happiness in the big picture? Like, and what does that look like? Because that's also like a level 10 sort of thought, I think. These things have different meaning to different people. You have to decide, what does this mean to you in your life? What does it mean to choose some amount of happiness over comfort? Is that a trade I would want to make? Some of it is just about the stories that we tell ourselves about why things are. Like, and the ideas that are put into us from the culture. You know, we live, like our session last week, we live in a consumption culture. We live in a culture that tells us that the way to happiness is through consumption, that the way you deal with this, and some of it is not so much of told, but it's just the environment, what it is, all the programming. Ever since we were little kids, we see our parents acting in certain ways, you know, and it's just programmed deep in there. The way that you deal with a problem is to, you know, paper over it by eating something and trigger these hormones in this sort of system. You start seeing that. You say, is this really the way I want to live? Is it really working? Is it really making me happier? You know, when you say actually leaning into a fasting space, which is something that I want to offer to people, but I never tell anyone to do, right? It's a personal decision. It's a personal choice. Never to be embarked upon because someone guilt tripped you into it, or you felt like, oh, I have to do something. It was like, you kind of need to be called to it, to say. Because like when our culture is saying like, you need to eat to feel better, and then you'll be happy. Like, is that working, right? To actually lean into the fasting, here would be like the fourth option out of it, is to actually sit in that space and invert it and say, okay, I've been in this place, comfort food, like feel better. Okay, but like I've had enough of it. You know what I mean? I have had enough of it. I'm gonna invert that and lean into the fasting. Because, okay, I've told you, I've done a tremendous amount of fasting. I've done every type of fasting, including extended fasting. I've done longer fasts, which is not something, that's not really simple fasting. That's like complex fasting, big, difficult fasting. Simple fasting about using tiny bits of fasting. Try to get as much benefit as you can out of it, and then get in a routine of it. But okay, an extended fast does have value. I don't want to say it doesn't have value, or that no one should ever consider doing it. Maybe at a certain point, an extended fast is the type of thing that someone is called to, because like you start to realize how powerful the body is, how much energy is in here, and how insignificant it is about whether you eat this next thing or not. Like when you realize, like when you've done it, like I went for many days without eating, and I was fine, and I felt better. I tell you, in an extended fast, you talk to somebody who's done it, like, I mean, it's an incredible experience. Like, it is an incredible experience to go through it. There, when we talk about back to the beginning, like our fire analogy, right? Like, fire can be very intense, right? Opening up a bigger fasting space, like really opening up the metabolism of saying, like, the body is like, whoa, like we haven't had food in a seriously bit of time here. Like, we got to fire this system up. You know what I mean? Like, this is like a legit situation. You just feel, it's like a, I don't know. I sometimes I feel like that, like day 2 on an extended fast would be like a roller coaster. Like, do you ever feel it? Whereas like you go on a roller coaster, is like You know it's going to be intense, but you kind of forget about it. You're like, I'm just going to get on. Like you get on, all of a sudden they're cranking you up the thing. And it's like, now you can't get off. And it's like, and you're like, I wish I hadn't have done that. You know what I mean? Like I would, like if you could hit a button when you're getting cranked up the roller coaster, if you could hit a button and it could like teleport you back off, like a lot of people would, get off. Now, of course, fasting would be like that. Okay, an extended fast would be like that. You can stop anytime you want. But to me, I feel like there's that point where it just feels like I'm on the roller coaster and it's like, whoa. And then it's like you're going down the roller coaster. It's like, whoa. It's like that's trying to get through that peak hunger wave, right? That peak intense situation where you just want to eat, where it's like, I didn't really need to do this. This is why fasting is difficult. Well, one of the many reasons is because literally at every millisecond along the way, you can always choose to stop it. You can always say, I've had enough. It's not on the roller coaster where you can't get off. Like you literally can get off anytime you want. And so to actually stay on it, to actually ride through the wave and get to the other side of it, right? To make it through the fire, right? And rise like the phoenix out of it, which is what the extended fast is like, right? Rising from the ashes. That's an intense thing to do. Like it just is intense, but I'll tell you, it's a human experience. And you come out the other side of it most of the time, like if you make it through it, and you feel like the good vibes are just flowing. Like that's how it's been for me. Whereas like, I was like, I can't believe I did that. You feel pretty good about yourself. You should feel good about it. And that is what can burn through so much of the resistance to it. You want to really break out of a cycle. Whereas like, I've felt trapped in this situation my whole life. I get to this scenario. I always get to this point. I have to eat, right? And you just feel trapped in this cycle. Tell you, that's a gnarly branch and throw it in the fire and burn it up and fast through it in any way that you can do it. And you break that and you burn it up. And that would be a way, very intense way, move directly toward it and obliterate it and burn it up. And you say, well, what would it be like to do that? Let's like get into that moment. Some stressful situation is happening. The emotional situation is not in a stable place. You're feeling hungry and you say, I just want to eat. And you say, I've been through this cycle for 50 years where every time I feel like this, I'm eating and I feel better, eating, feel better. And I was like, I'm done with it, done with that cycle. How happy would you be to be free of a cycle like that, right? Can you choose happiness over comfort in the short term? Can you ride the roller coaster, right? If you're up there and you're in that spot and you're like, God, ride it out. Hunger comes in a wave. Stress comes in a wave. It lasts for a finite period of time. How can you move yourself through that space to exist in the world without eating as the coping mechanism for that place? Do every other thing that I said, right? Use a fasting aid, try to change that scenario. Don't fight it. There's no rule that says you have to do it, but I'm trying to get through as many ways to approach it as I can. This would be the 10th level, right? Go directly through it. Fast through it. Lean into fasting. Fasting, so underappreciated, right? You want to reset. You want a clean slate. You want to just completely move in the other direction, right? Open up some more fasting space. Like really lean through it. Here's been my experience. Here's the experience many people have with extended fasting. Like to me, simple fasting, fast for a day, okay? Eat 2 meals in a day, simple fasting. Eat 1 meal in a day, simple fasting, okay? Just fast for a whole day. Maybe you had dinner one day and then you slept and then you fasted the entire day and went to bed again, okay, meaning you just knocked out all the eating for one day. I still consider that pretty simple fasting, but that's kind of the end of it. That would be the end of simple fasting. Now you want to say, okay, and I always tell people, make sure you can do all of that and practice that before you try to push things even further. You go on the little kiddie coaster before you go on the big roller coaster, right? But you've been walking this path for a while. You're like, look, I can do these things. I can do this, but it's this specific situation, right? This situation where it's like, if it's just here and there, no big deal. But if it's really a struggle, if it's like, I'm not going in a better direction because this happens, right? Every time I am starting to move forward, the stress hits, then I hit this, like the 10th level, be fast through it, open up that space. My experience has been, okay, make it through day 2, right? First time I ever tried to do it, I did OMAD, I got used to that, got good at it, tried to fast a whole day, couldn't do it. Way too hungry. Tried to go to bed after not eating a whole day, couldn't do it. I was anxious, fidgety, pacing around the house, Okay, but you just work at it, practice it, and then I remember, well, I did it, on like the 5th or 6th try. And then I woke up the next day and I felt better. And I was like, it wasn't so bad. Like, and have breakfast, no more fasting. And then, I did that, I do that a few times. I was like, oh, I can do it. Like the body learns. To go beyond that then, I remember the first time I tried to do a more extended fast, then I was like, I don't know about this, but I wanted to do it, it was a balance. I wasn't stressed out by it, but I say, well, it's difficult. So make it through that. Then I come up on that 3rd day and it's like, no hunger. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, no hunger. Felt so good. Blasting through all the resistance is the type of thing that a person can do. You can train yourself to thoughtfully, calmly, gently do it, and you don't have to just go out and do it. That's what I did. I worked my way up over like a year to do it. And so if you're in a very difficult space where you say, I am just, I'm at my wit's end. I've tried all these different things. Try all the different strategies that I am suggesting, but just realize kind of the ultimate weapon of weight loss, right? It is there for you to just fast through it. And I love that analogy, like we said, with a fire. Just absolutely burn through it. In the pure fasting state, that's like opening up that whole space. Burn through all the excess. Think of it, yes, the physical, right? We're trying to burn extra body fat. It is actually energy. It is calories, okay? But also the resistance, right? The resistance to it, the struggle, the difficulty, the emotions, right? Can you burn that part of it up? Can you burn it up? And that would be my encouragement to consider with an extended fast. If you are going to try to push that out, I like thinking of it like a roller coaster. You sign up on a roller coaster, right? You know it's going to be a ride. There's going to be intensity. You push through that intensity. It comes in a wave, and that wave will last a certain amount of time. The most intense part of a hunger wave for most people is 60 to 90 minutes, right? To get through it, right? Lean into that space, right? Whatever it is for you that we talked about. lean into that space through any way. Maybe it's just watching a movie, right? Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it is journaling. Maybe it's taking a walk, calling a friend or family member, and just chatting through it. But the more I sit here and think about it, the more I would say that's really the out of the box, the countercultural approach to actually use fasting. That's like the judo move, right? Judo. I'm not a martial artist, okay? But it's like using the enemy's energy against them, right? Have you ever seen it where it's like some little guy is like fighting this huge, strong person and they just throw him around, you know? A lot of times like that big guy will throw a punch and then the smaller person just take that energy and use it against them in this flow, right? And so if you can get into that mindset, weight loss judo, there would be a great way to think about it. Take the energy of the stressful situation, position your life and actions in a way that takes that energy and feeds it into the fasting process and fast your way through it. Then you're going to burn up the stress. It's going to get you, you're going to get through that space and you're going to get to the other side feeling great in so many ways. Physically, because it's rejuvenating the body, you're getting that cleansing effect. And then emotionally, okay, you get the boost like, hey, I did something incredible that very few people doing. And then also burning up the stress hormones, physically helping the body. I'm going to think through more of that this week, fasting through the difficulty. Some really great analogies that that we have discussed together here today. The roller coaster analogy, I love that. Going to think more about that. The fire analogy is fire. Loving that. And the judo analogy, really nice. So give some thoughts on that this week as you're thinking through it. Appreciate you all so much. Anybody who's still here with me, thank you for making it through technical difficulties. And I will look forward to seeing you back here next week.